let's start off with a bit, except I'll tell Alex that his bit can shove it because we have a guest, so we don't need one.
All right.
That will be the bit.
That is the bit. Can this just be the bit?
You know what? I don't see why not. I don't see why this can't be the bit, except fuck this bit because we don't need it because we got a guest.
Anything can be a bit as long as you believe hard enough.
If you believe in the heart of the bits,
Damn it,
anything
took
will
away
be a
from me.
bit. I'm playing 5 moves ahead. Anyway, go
I'll
ahead.
allow you. You know what? Who?
Let's let our guest introduce himself because we can't keep talking over each other.
Yeah, so my name is Joe Tilton. You can find me on Discord as one of the secret anime club admins as me and Getsu. And I actually work as an employee of Imouri, and I also do anime reviews on top of that to help alongside making sure that we could build our collective anime community within Imouri and spread the love.
Yeah, so we
That's
have an
right.
actual
We have a real
professional.
guest.
It's not just our friend this time. It's our friend who also happens to be a professional.
And if you don't know who we are, this is the Protagonist Seat podcast. I'm Alex. That's Ian.
Hello. And
Hello.
if you don't know what we do here on just that pure momentum stop. That's what we're all about here. If you don't know what we do, we talk about anime, and we have special episodes for movies of anime, and we figured what better time to bring on a guest to spread everyone's reach than with the Goblin Slayer movie.
Yeah, because it's a lot easier than bringing a guest on for our normal format. It's like, hey, we're watching episode 9 of 5 seasonal anime. Just kind of jump right into that.
Yeah, just catch up with 10 episodes and just jump right in. It'll be great.
Yeah, I can imagine that format, but hey, I love this. I love the special anime episode segment. I think this is going to be awesome. Just like hearing from what you told me, prior to getting on the podcast, you guys are working very hard on it. I encourage, not only the Imouri fans, we will be listening on this podcast as well, but anybody in the anime community, I highly suggest, listening to the Protagonist Seat and, just hearing what, these fine folks have to say about anime and what their thoughts are. And we welcome all anime constructive criticism and reviews.
Exactly. And
endorsement.
A real genuine endorsement. And
they did not pay me.
Not yet, anyway. That hasn't gone through. But
as
we'll get
we
to
always
that
say
later.
on the show, it's a negative budget here.
Yes. And we've probably mentioned it a couple times in like real past episodes, but I myself am a fan of Imouri. Yes, that is words. I've been a fan of them for a long time. I probably own more Imouri shirts than I do non-Imouri shirts. And
it's true. Every time he comes to D&D, I feel like he has a different Imouri shirt every time.
Yes, because I can't wear my Dungeon Master one anymore, because I'm not the Dungeon Master. Hey, that's a perfect segue, because this show/movie is basically Dungeons and Dragons.
It is. And before we get into that, just what is everyone's sort of thoughts? Joe, you've seen the original Goblin Slayer series, right?
Oh yeah, of course, a couple of times.
Now, what's your thoughts on just kind of the overall series, sort of separate from the movie?
I think the overall series isn't bad at all. I know it got a little bit of flack from the first episode because it was like very graphic in content, but we are all adults. We can handle a little bit of graphic content as long as we have an adult mindset. But other than that, a lot of people from my experience have kind of, initially got away from Goblin Slayer because they saw that the first episode was too much. But in all honesty, it really set the tone for the entire anime because essentially it's taking what is in the video game culture probably one of the most pathetic enemies in the entire video game culture and making it the center focal point of the entire series. And that's a lot to do for just one particular enemy/monster, which is, of course, the goblins.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, that's what I really enjoyed about the franchise, or like I feel like that's the big appeal of it, is the fact that it's something so simple. Just, goblins. Anytime you play any game, goblins are just, they're not even really a present in your mind. You kill the goblins, you move on. You want to go fight the dragons. You want to fight the big stuff. But in this, it's like, hey, goblins are still a problem. I know everyone tends to ignore them because they want to be big heroes, but if you're just a regular villager, goblins are the worst thing to happen to you.
And I think that's one of the things where the show and I suppose the movie itself really kind of excels is that they do a pretty good job of establishing threat and varying up these little tier 1 enemies to make them actually seem dangerous.
I mean, yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, let's be real. Like the way that Goblin Slayer, the series, even like the first season, had made goblins to be, I mean, it really is a menacing threat. I mean, take real life example. If a horde of goblins decide to smash into your home and they're ready with weapons and stuff like that, and they're ruthless creatures, like you are going to be completely unprepared for something like that. It's going to be, it's going to be a literal hell on earth for at least you for a little bit. And I think with Goblin Slayer, it really accentuated that by just how fearsome it can be, and it got away from that again, that patheticness of the enemy archetype of goblin, like, oh, it's a goblin, like, and and this is one of the because I actually have reviewed Goblin Slayer the movie already. This is one of the things I'm going to talk about later on with this is how in depth they made the goblins. It's probably one of my most fascinating points of the entire series.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into that a little bit more because they do a pretty good job of it's not just like a goblin. There's like 30 billion different types of goblins and they all do different things.
Yeah, it's almost like they took every class in the game or like in the D&D manual and assigned a specific goblin type for that class.
Hey, what if a fighter but was goblins?
Yeah, what if paladin but was goblins?
Yeah, essentially is what they did.
It's a little bit of foreshadowing for later.
Yep.
Yeah,
what better place to start the movie but at the beginning?
Yeah.
And by beginning, I mean 25 minutes into the beginning of the movie, because it starts with a flashback / what you missed by not watching the season 1.
It starts with a whole recap, and part of this was kind of weird to me because I get that it's a recap. It just feels like a recap episode, but not all of it feels relevant where if you were going to step into just watching the movie. Because I feel like you don't really need to know about the sewer arc when they were doing that, or even the farm arc, just because, I don't know, I don't feel that's particularly relevant to this story. I feel like that's just extending the recap.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty valid point, because you really only need like the background. This is who Goblin Slayer is. He slays goblins. This is who he's friends with. They also slay goblins.
Because obviously, I think the important parts they touched upon was the sort of the first episode recap they did, and obviously him meeting his party members.
Yeah. What happens after that? I forget.
So
I did just watch this movie maybe 3 hours ago, but I have already forgotten.
It actually starts with a whole separate group of adventurers, I believe. It is a different group, and we see them absolutely wrecking the goblins. Like, this is a very proficient group. They have good coordination and tactics.
I agree. Yeah, it does start in the setting is like the northern snowy mountains area. It has a separate group of 4 people, and you're right, they're a little bit proficient in their tactics. So just like you said, but you get, if you've seen the Goblin Slayer series, the first 12 episodes, you get a gut feeling when watching this that something's not right and something awful is going to happen to said group. Why? Because you're not Goblin Slayer's group.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, this isn't Goblin. There's no Goblin Slayer here. And they're talking about, I feel like it's a death sentence in a Goblin Slayer series where a character is going like, man, these goblins are really weak, or these goblins are pretty easy. I'm like, oh no, you just said the wrong thing.
Yep. And it's exactly that mentality too, where they say like, oh yeah, like we're gonna do this is a cakewalk. We're gonna be back in time for dinner. I'm like, you just ate your own words when you said that.
Like, well, you guys are the red shirts.
Yes, they're dropping those serious "what could possibly go wrong" flags. it could only be worse if like the big dude was like, man, today's my last day as an adventurer. This is my last mission.
Yeah, I'm retiring right after this.
Or I'm getting married the next day to the love of my life.
It's like, I can't wait to go see my newborn son.
Just throw all of those flags at us all at once.
Yeah,
Man, the
that's
wizard.
pretty much how it starts.
The wizard needs to go meet his. This isn't literally what happens, but it's basically what happens.
Yeah.
The wizard needs to go meet his firstborn son. The old dude's retiring. The rogue is getting married to the love of their life.
If this was a horror movie, this is the first group it shows right before they all get murdered.
Yeah.
And then the real protagonists come in to save the day.
Yeah.
Because we get Goblin Slayer.
Yeah, we get it. It cuts to the guild, and they get a special mission involving goblins where they have to go up north to save a nobleman's daughter who became an adventurer and went missing.
I could only imagine who that could be. If it was maybe the girl with the crazy sword and the lightning magic.
Yeah.
Yep, pretty much.
Everyone else looks pretty generic and has like basic looking armor, and she's got like she's got a silver breastplate, she's got this jeweled sword, she shoots lightning. I wonder if she's the nobleman's daughter. I don't know, but I guess we'll just have to find out.
And then the next place they go is to the village, and the village is being attacked by goblins, since clearly something went wrong with that other group.
Yeah, they just kind of leap right into it at this point. It's all of a sudden there are goblins in village, and Goblin Slayer slays goblins.
But of course, we get a cool fight scene of everyone using their tactics and stuff. Like, I really like this one part where one of the goblins is attacking Priestess, and she uses her flash move at point blank range to blind him. And then Goblin Slayer comes over and finishes him off. And he's like, "Hey, good use of holy light."
Yeah,
good job, kid.
And he does it in that voice too. Yes, good use of the holy light. Dang, I messed it up. But I usually have like this Goblin Slayer. It's like, goblins. I'm gonna slay my goblins.
Goblins.
Goblins. We slay the
But
goblins.
yeah, so following along the story, so what ends up happening is they, get information about the goblins from the villagers, and to be honest, there is sort of like a keynote that I want to sidestep into, just as I love how like throughout the entire series in the movie, there's always a new and clever way that Goblin Slayer dispatches his enemies, and it's always very creative. In this particular one, they kill the goblins. He shoots one arrow that breaks off the tip of the arrow as the goblin runs away, and he's using that as a pseudo tracking mechanism, but also as a way to kind of help kill the goblin's nest.
Yes.
And it's basically like the old adage of bringing having a rat have rat poison and bringing it into the colony, or like ants, same exact difference, but more gruesome, because basically he says, oh yeah, this poison basically goes through your body, causes necrosis, and liquefies your body, and then you just die. So in the story, he ends up at the village, talking to the village people, figuring out what's going on, and then they decide to move more up north into the area where the villagers were last known, to kind of check things out, and that's where he sees the remnants of the camp and what's been going on lately with the goblins, and kind of goes from there,
Yeah, because he finds out from the villagers that one of them came back once to ask for food and supplies, and that was the last time they saw her.
And they weren't looking too good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it was just her instead of the rest of her party.
Which we'll get to that moment in a little bit, but even watching it a second time, I was still like, that's the worst goddamn idea I have ever seen ever.
Oh, their plan.
What moron sends someone back to town alone for supplies? That is, guys, there's goblins.
I mean, and it's not even just the goblins you have to worry about. Every element is against them. They're in the winter north, up in the mountains where it's cold, and it's one person, so it's going to be hard to carry the supplies to begin with, and it's nighttime. Like, What?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just I feel
What
like one of
decisions?
the things that seems to uh I'll say work against the people who are not Goblin Slayer in this we'll say franchise the most is being ill prepared for things because to bring it
Yeah,
back to
because that's his
season
whole
one.
thing. He's like Batman with prep.
Exactly. In the first season, the new adventurers, the fighter brings a long sword into a tight cave and he can't swing it around as effectively. This time it's people going into the woods, not prepared for camping out in the freaking in the freezing cold weather for like 6 days
Yeah, it's because they were like, hey, I know we were just chasing these goblins, but why don't we do a long siege?
of
Yeah,
this cave.
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's funny because, and you're exactly right. I think with the series with the non-Goblin Slayer groups, I think it's like 2/3 ill preparedness, 1/3 bad decisions.
Yeah, there's a lot of horror movie type decisions being made on behalf of these people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But so we get a little flashback sort of to see what exactly happened to that group. Turns out they were camping outside this goblin cave, thinking, "Oh, we'll just starve them out. They'll have to come out and we'll just kill them when they come out the gates." But they wait a long time. They wait a couple of days. They start running out of food and they realize no goblins are coming out of there. And the group starts to slowly kind of break away from the girl who's their leader, starting to question her leadership because at first they're all on board like, "Hey, yeah, that's a great idea." Like the mage guy is super on like, yeah, you know what, that's a good idea, you're our leader, I trust you. And then by day 6 or 7 or whatever, he's completely changed his tune to, yeah, I knew this was a bad idea.
The mage is the truest simp.
When times get hard, you change.
Like,
so pretty much piggybacking on the story. So what ended up happening was, after the flashback, they go and investigate the goblins, the little cave. They did, of course, Goblin Slayer in true delicious fashion, um, dispatches the goblins with effort and with little effort and just ease. And they kind of see that there's like some ceremonial markings on the wall. And they're like, is this like a shaman or anything like that? But they don't kind of know exactly what's going on. But they see weird markings that have something to do with like the goblin religion, and they notice that, oh, guess what? 3 out of the 4 people are dead, and who's alive but our fearless princess noble woman who basically bore this mark and now is like the maybe sacrificial lamb for this upcoming ritual. But they find her essentially and bring
Yeah,
her back to the village to kind of see, hey, what the heck happened here?
because she ended up going there. When she came back with the supplies, she got attacked by the goblins and found out all of her companions were dead. And then she got, of course, goblined, as what tends to happen in this show.
but in a
And
much more tasteful fashion than in the past.
yeah,
Yep.
they kind of skip by it. They're just like, you know what's about to happen, and then they move on. And then she got branded by whoever is the leader of these goblins. And while the Goblin Slayer group is investigating this cave, Goblin Slayer finds out they're learning more quickly because the same poison arrow tactic he used gets used on High Elf Archer.
Ooh,
Yes,
you're right.
she gets
Yep.
shot in the thigh with one of the arrows, and as they pull it out, the head gets caught inside, and he's like, "Oh shit, that's very familiar."
And since they don't have a lot of time, he basically has to gouge it out.
Yeah, he
I'm,
gouges it. I believe he cauterizes the wound, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
yes, he has a dwarf mage summon some fire, heat up the blade, and just dig it and torch it.
Yep.
And another thing I kind of want to mention about this scene, because it's something I didn't notice upon watching it the first time. Goblin Slayer has a different weapon in basically every shot, which is another it's another quirk of Goblin Slayer where he's always just like, well, I'll just throw away this weapon now. It's dead to me. It's useless. I don't need it. And he'll
I love
just
how
pick up the
crazy it
next
gets
thing.
later in this. We'll touch upon that.
Yeah, I will say that is one of my favorite parts of this movie.
Yeah, but it's perfect because he's like, like if you really think about it, in a sense, um, you don't it like like when you play a video game or watch it get animated, it's like, why did you pick up that weapon and use it against him? Like, why did you do that? But he does exactly what everybody's thinking: pick up said other weapon and use it against said enemy. Um, and it works perfectly with him.
Yes, he is versatility 100. That dude will pick up and use anything. He will use things that you did not think would be useful in that situation and make them useful.
He has every weapon proficiency.
He
Yeah,
has
he really does.
he has everything proficiency. That man is unstoppable.
Yeah,
Um, but
his thirst for goblin killing is just unquenchable.
He's
it,
got a
it
PhD in goblin killing.
he
Yeah.
earned it. He earned it.
Yeah,
So we rescue, I'm going to call her Noble Fencer because I think that sounds cool.
yeah, because we don't really get a name for her. Of course, no one in Goblin Slayer has names as much as what their role in the story is. So I was just thinking calling her Noble's daughter.
Yeah, and imagine if that's how stuff worked. Like I just went to work tomorrow and they were like, "What's up, mechanical assembler?" Nothing much, supervisor. How's
That that'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
how's
How's things at home?
laser
Oh,
welder doing?
Mrs. Supervisor's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you want to continue with the story, or can I keep going with it?
uh
Or
yeah, you know what? We should probably continue with the story. We'll follow the story, we'll do our bits.
And see where it goes.
We'll
But
see
yeah,
yep.
where
so
it
they get
goes.
back to town, and after they learn about the fact that there, they learn that there is another fortress up there where there's apparently some old dwarven fortress that's been abandoned, and Goblin Slayer, of course, knows, oh, that's the perfect place for the goblins to use.
Because why not?
And the girl wants to go with them, sort of to get revenge on the goblins and get her sword back. And most of the group is against this, especially Elf Archer.
Because at this point she has attained the title of traumatized noble, and it's
Yep.
pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Uh, but Goblin Slayer's like, hey, if I'm not your friend, I'm not your babysitter. If you want to do something, make a request.
You
Put in
gotta
a request.
wait.
Yeah. We gotta go through the legal channels on this one.
Because
Yeah.
Goblin Slayer is just as a stickler for the legality and rules of being an adventurer as he is for being the Goblin Slayer.
Yeah. But you want to know my favorite part of this is probably one of my most favorite parts of the whole movie right here. It's like the dwarf, our dwarven mage is just like, you know what? This is an old fortress. It's impenetrable because of the location and stuff like that. So when you think that the Goblin Slayer couldn't have think of anything better, what does he do? He grabs all the women and uses them as bait.
Yeah. They do the they basically do the Star Wars sneak in thing where they pretend, oh, we have prisoners we're handing over to you, and they paint their armor black, and they have Lizard Man Shaman basically act as like he's a priest of the evil sect.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they just cart the girls in the cages,
Yeah.
the elf, the noblewoman, and the priestess, in these like makeshift cages, and they, you know what, those goblins, they just okay, just let them
Yeah,
walk
sure.
through.
And priestess, because she's just the best, tries to obviously see that the noble's daughter is pretty still upset about everything. She's like, hey, are you cold? No, I'm not cold. Well, I'm cold, so I'm just gonna sit next to you if that's okay.
Because it is very cold and they do not have warm clothing on.
But then
Nope.
the Goblin Slayer gets the idea to put a sheet over their cage because they're pretty much wearing nothing but rags in sub-zero weather.
He also gives them breathing like rings that allow people to breathe underwater. But don't worry because that will totally not come back later at whatsoever. No, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's not gonna be relevant.
That's
Why would you even mention that?
it's
Yeah.
the last time we see him. Trust me.
It's a minor detail.
But you know what? It really helps the world building.
Definitely true. So in the story, if I'm not, because it's been a little bit since I've seen it, if I'm not mistaken, they sneak in. Little Miss Tuffet, noblewoman, decides to go on a rampage, and after they
Yeah.
sneak into the fortress and they put the prisoner, quote unquote prisoners, into the dungeons, she gets really mad, breaks out of her cell, so to speak, and kills one of the high-ranking goblins. He definitely looked like not like the rest of the goblins. I'm pretty sure he had some sort of like ritualistic robes
Yeah,
on
he
and
was like a
like that.
priest.
He was
Yep.
like a high priest or something like
Yeah.
that.
The goblin priest is basically like, hey, we're gonna take priestess and use her as the sacrifice first. So
And
they
they
open the
yeah.
cage, and
And
then
the second they open it, this girl just loses it and starts strangling him to death.
she goes absolutely bananas ballistic
And
and
then
just
everyone's like, crap, our cover's blown. Guess we're doing this now. And Goblin Slayer immediately throws like a sword or something at one who's at the top of the stairs about to run and tell the others.
Yep,
I
and
like
deep down that Goblin Slayer is smiling underneath his mask. He's like, "This is how I wanted it to be."
Yeah. I don't want to hang out
I
with the goblins.
I like this because the women in the cage are like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" And then after it happens, I think both Goblin Slayer and the Lizard Man are like, "Yeah, we kind of expected this to happen."
Yeah. Because
Oh yeah.
yeah, Elf Archer's the only one that's like, this was supposed to be a stealth mission. And everyone else is like, was it really?
But was it though?
He's Goblin Slayer. He's not gonna leave them alive.
No.
So basically, during after Mr. Goblin Slayer slays the goblin on the stairs and they get their armor up and running, they devise a plan to basically sneak through the castle to go to the armory and use some sort of like a combination of like I think dwarven and the dragon guy, dragon sage spells to rot the weapon, so they made him useless.
Yeah.
And because they wanted to make sure that they have the best advantage in battle once things start to get ugly. And then what they noticed is that if I'm not mistaken correctly, they divided up, and the Goblin Slayer as well as the priestess and the noblewoman are together, and they go to the top of the castle where the courtyard is and see the goblin army down there, and they see one big goblin, a goblin paladin, on a throne, and they realize that it's actually a royal procession to crown a goblin king.
Yeah, which are so far some of the hardest goblins to fight.
And
Yeah.
the necessary component to this ceremony is the goblin priest.
Who they strangled in the dungeon.
Yes.
Yep.
But
And
luckily
yeah, well,
luckily
he's doing this chant, and while he's doing it, it starts activating the brand on the back of the girl's neck. So she has a full like just moment of just pain. So she starts screaming out. And I like how earlier they basically said like, all right, you're not gonna do anything else. You're not gonna do any more like blowing our cover or anything. She's like, yeah, we're all good. And then it's like that meme. So that was a lie.
and
Yeah.
scene.
And I think there was one key detail that both the noblewoman and the Goblin Slayer noticed, is that our Goblin Paladin actually has the dual sword
Yeah.
that from the noblewoman, and he has it in his hilt. So she
Yes.
recognizes it as the whole mark is being activated, and then she goes completely insane from pain, which it's kind of like the pain from like the Cruciatus spell from Harry Potter, where she just starts going insane.
Yeah. I
Yes.
do really like this scene though, in where she's crying, saying how she just wants to go home, she just wants her sword back, and she doesn't want to be an adventurer anymore. And Goblin Slayer's just silently staring at her and just goes, "Okay, I'll get your sword back."
Yeah. And that's when you know the Goblin Slayer takes it serious, where he's just like, fine, I will get it back for you. You know he's going to get it back. No
Yeah.
doubt about that.
If he says he's gonna do something, he does it.
I
Yeah.
think that's one of my favorite things about Goblin Slayer is that he is a very kind person, but he carries a very kind silence. He doesn't like go on and just try to console people. but he
just does the thing that will fix the problem.
exactly.
He's not going to be able to console you with words.
Yeah, and I think that his actions speak louder than his words, and that he's always about show me with action, not with words type of thing.
Exactly. And he also promises that he will kill every goblin, not just the ones in the courtyard, not just the ones in the forest, not just the ones in that country, but all of them.
Every single one.
And you know what? I believe it. I believe him.
If he says it, it's going to happen.
Yeah, that, and he's a glutton for punishment too. So
yeah,
yeah, he relishes the bloodshed like nothing else.
And he splits his group into two. They realize because Lizard Man has the skeleton dude he can summon that he's probably best to bring the other hostages they found outside because he has more manpower to carry them. So him and Dwarf split up into one group, and the other group goes and acts sort of as the decoy, the diversion for the paladin.
Right. So we get a cool little chase sequence along the ramparts of the castle. We see noble woman starts to lose her mind a little bit as she's getting chased by the goblins.
And it looks like Goblin Slayer and Priestess are getting way too far away from her.
And then Priestess proves best girl status. Comes up, holds her hand, bam, brings her back to the moment, takes her forward.
Yeah.
That's what you need. That's what you need right there. Healing the mental scars.
Yep. And I think that was a great scene. And it's interesting because that's a great scene where when that happens, she finally gets a grip and she starts helping the Goblin Slayer by using her lightning magic while on the ramparts and stuff like that. So it's actually like a really cool scene of them like literally trying to kill as many goblins as humanly possible through every mean humanly possible, whether it's spears, lightning magic, pretty much anything.
Yeah.
She pushes a torch into one of their faces
and just knocks them over the edge.
They
got like a little rampart thing they're building up, like a wooden sort of tower, and he just starts taking an axe to it and just cuts it down so they all fall off and the logs just crush a bunch of them.
Oh, you mean that scaffolding, right?
Yeah, the scaffolding.
Yeah, that wooden scaffolding. And at the same time while this is all going on, you have Mr. Goblin Paladin like chasing after everybody. And of course, like Goblin Slayer, deep down he's like, I want a piece of that. I want all of that. Like, because he wants to fight that. And of course, like, they end up clashing on the ramparts. And it's, like he's realizing, oh my God, this Goblin Paladin, he's like serious business, but like he's holding his own while every other goblin out there is trying to kill him.
But he realizes too that none of these swords that he picked up have any sort of match against the sword he's using because he's using the noblewoman's sword. So I think the first time they fight, the sword just gets cut right in half.
Yep, he slashes the crappy just pickup rapier that the Goblin Slayer grabbed. Just right in half. Whatever, your sword ain't shit.
Yep.
But they're able to finally escape off the ramparts over the wall with some rope. Which at this part I'm like, they're watching them go down. I'm surprised they don't just cut the rope.
Well, they're goblins.
Well, I guess they just fall into snow, so probably wouldn't be that bad.
I don't know. It's like, unless it's like hitting concrete like water.
Yeah. I guess it depends on how powdery it is.
Yeah, that's true. Is this like a nice fresh mountain snow, or is this like the southern New Hampshire wet heavy snow?
They are on a mountain.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's that sweet powdery gunstock snow.
Yeah.
But they end up now fleeing from the castle on foot, and the entire castle is now just chasing them, and just one big horde. But the only thing in front of them is a cliff. Yep. And you think right now it's like, uh-oh, this is bad. There's just a cliff in front of them. But then Goblin Slayer says, this is exactly where we want them to be.
Because it is one of the ultimate, this went all 100% according to my plans.
All according to Keikaku.
All according to Keikaku.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, because weren't one of the goblins using like bombs or something like that with their like earlier, and he basically they do something. I forget exactly what it is, but they do something to blow up the castle that causes an avalanche.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple things because shaman and dwarf literally cause an explosion in the castle, and then while they're on the cliff, Noble uses like some super ult. She basically pops her ult right there, hits everything with lightning, and just blows everything sky high.
Yep.
And I love during this scene when the avalanche starts, they have Priestess use protection, which is basically a shield. So when all of the snow starts coming by them, it's like an extra little they almost have a little pocket of protection where all the snow's just going around them.
Unfortunately, however, because Goblin Slayer, because we completely like
Well, yeah, we forgot the
managed to
fight, the main fight.
we managed to skip over one of like the coolest moments during the climax of the movie.
What have we done?
I know. Sorry, guys.
This is just how it be. This is how it goes on the protagonist seat. We jump around a lot. Goblin Slayer turns around. He's like, I'm gonna mess this idiot up. He has one of Shaman's like crazy scythe things.
Yeah, because while they're running, he gets a bunch of different weapons because basically Dwarf is running with him and just throwing him different weapons, and he just is like, give me the next one. He takes a sword, chucks it, give me the next one. He takes an axe, throws it, and he just keeps getting more and more weapons. And then after he's like
killing goblins. Every time he throws a weapon, he's killing a goblin.
Yeah.
It is
every time.
Perfect.
And sometimes he gets like two of them where one will like fall and trip the other one.
My favorite part of that is where Dwarf is like, hey, what do you want next? And he's like, give me the shovel. And he throws him a shovel, and he just like, he digs into their skulls pretty good.
Yeah, give me the shovel.
That one catches me off guard every time. I've watched this movie twice, and both times I never expected that.
The shovel? Yeah.
But he does finally confront the big bad goblin paladin, and it looks like, the paladin has the edge, but then Goblin Slayer takes a defensive stance. He just kind of holds up his shield, almost being like, hey, come get me.
Come at me, bro. And he does. He falls for it.
Yep, and the goblin shoves the sword right through the shield, but now it's stuck in the shield. And now
all according to Keikaku.
Yep, again. And then he just lobs with his free hand the head of the goblin paladin off, and boom, their leader is donezo.
Yep.
And then an avalanche starts, and he's like, well, shit.
And whereas everyone else is like, hey, we just hide behind here and we're good, he notices he didn't get the sheath for the sword.
That's kind of important, guys.
Even though, the sword is probably a lot more important than the sheath, but
it's a one-of-a-kind decorative collector's item, dude. You can't just leave that in the snow.
Yep,
it'll rust.
Get behind.
Yeah, and he's a man of his word, so of course he's going to get that back too. So he runs out into the avalanche.
And you know what? The boy does it.
He gets that sheath. The avalanche also gets him too.
Yeah, the avalanche gets him, and the noblewoman is very worried at first after it settles down, but the rest of his party's like, he probably won't die that easily.
Yeah, we should.
It's like, yeah, he'll be back.
Yeah,
we should probably start walking over. Try and dig him out. She's like, "Why are you guys so calm about this?
It's just
the
what he does.
man's indestructible."
Yeah.
This is.
They
this
stop
is
and they go,
another
hey, do you see that? Do you see that up there? They point at the title. Goblin Slayer.
Goblin Slayer.
Goblin Slayer.
That's
Slayer.
that guy. Slayer.
Yeah, and lo and behold, they dig him out, and they, he basically says to the noblewoman, "I got your sword and sheath back." And what was that book back then? We said something about those rings or something like that.
Be. Joe, you're not suggesting it came full circle.
No, it would never. Did it come full circle? What?
No, that's crazy.
Crazy. This
Except that it
entire
does.
this entire time, he just wanted to have an avalanche take everyone out, and if they got buried in the snow, they can use the rings to breathe under the snow while they dig themselves out, so they don't suffocate to death.
This man is a 5D chess master.
This
Yeah.
man is playing freaking 17D chess. This dude is thinking in terms of time and dimensions we can't even process yet.
He is
You
a
ever sit there and like you think
grandmaster.
about arguments with someone like, that would be a good like thing to use in an argument. Instead, he sits there and goes like, that'd be a good way to kill a goblin.
Yep.
I better write that down.
Yes, another way to kill goblins. But yeah, essentially, you know, Miss Noblewoman gets her sword back, and there's like a little bit of cahoots about like the village being saved and everything like that, and that, I mean, for the most part, pretty much concludes the movie. Don't you guys think?
Yeah, they
Yep.
go back, they celebrate back at the guild hall, and it kind of ends with everyone going like, "Hey, where is Goblin Slayer?" Because I guess it's New Year's, and of course, what is he doing while everyone else is partying and having fun? Standing guard in case of goblins.
Yep.
That's what the man does.
Yeah, he's camped outside of town.
I like how Priestess walks up and she's like, "Are you really guarding, like keeping watch for goblins now?" And his response is, "Don't ask such a dumb question."
Yeah. He's like, they're very active on New Year's.
Yeah, but you know what? The funny thing is, he's totally right in this, because every person in that tavern is plumb drunk, and he's not.
Yeah.
He is 150% right. I would never doubt anything that man said about goblins.
Yeah.
He's got the PhD. You don't want to question him on goblins.
If
Yeah.
that dude was like, "I need a bow and 7 arrows just in case goblins learned how to fly," I'd be like, "Holy shit. We got to
Flying
prepare.
goblins.
We got to prepare for flying goblins now. We got to do it."
Yep. That's pretty much how he is. He's so forward thinking, and he thinks and plans ahead, and that's what makes him so versatile.
He is Goblin Batman.
Very true.
Well, anti-Goblin Batman.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't like goblins.
Yeah, after
doesn't
that,
like
it pretty
goblins.
much ends, and we get another Mealy song, who is the artist who did the opening for the original anime, and it just kind of fades out from there.
Yeah. And end roll credits.
The end cap to another lovely Goblin Slayer adventure.
And hopefully there's a season 2.
Hopefully. There's enough material. I know the light novel is super popular.
Yeah, that's what I
Never
heard
know.
too. It's really good.
There's even a lot of spin-offs too. Like I know there's one where it's Goblin Slayer, but it's not him specifically, but it's like maybe like an alternate world or something where he's a samurai instead of like a knight motif he's got going on. It's more of like an Eastern thing.
Oh wow. That'd be
Yeah,
pretty cool.
there's a lot of material they could do.
Goblin Showdown.
Goblins.
Yeah.
I dig that. So since we've covered all of the plot in extensive detail with bits, why don't we give some wrap-ups? We'll give some final thoughts.
What did we think
Say
of the
what
movie?
we thought. How'd this movie make you feel, guys?
Yeah, I mean, do you mind if I go first, or?
You are the guest.
You are the guest. Have at it.
Yeah. So, like I said before, I reviewed this anime 2 or 3 days after it came out because I absolutely loved the Goblin Slayer movie and the series. For anybody who doesn't know, I do reviews, and I started making reviews on Imouri as well. And I break it down by story, animation, character development, and world building. I give each of them a score 1 out of 10, and I do an overall score of the entire show. So to me, I'm not really much of a fan of isolated stories, because essentially this is what it is. It's an isolated story in the OVA of the movie, but at the same time, it was I thought it was really good because it took a different direction. Introduced a couple new characters, and it kind of without giving too much detail away, it kind of gave a little bit more lore on this end because in the movie, which we didn't mention earlier, because it's only like a minor detail, they also talked about like the gods of like the different gods that there are, a little bit more explanation into the goblins as a
That's
whole,
true.
like paladin and stuff like that. And I thought the movie I thought the story was overall was pretty good because it showed the elements from the series and it collided with some new elements to really bring something unique to the table to kind of like flesh out that the overall story. And even though it's an isolated story, which again I'm not typically a fan of, but this one did a pretty good job of it. So overall, in my review for the story, I actually gave it an 8 out of 10.
8
I
out of
would
10.
I would
That's pretty
agree.
good. I would
Alex?
say that I think I like this one more than some of the arcs because I know when I was watching the original anime, I got a little bit bored with it during the sewer arc where they were helping the Sword Maiden. Because I really enjoyed the farm one, just because I like seeing all the characters come together to help him. But I don't know why that one I felt kind of fatigued by it. But this one I really enjoyed, and I felt like it was just kind of a good sort of for what a movie is, because usually the movies don't tie in too much to the main narrative. But I just enjoyed seeing all these characters interact with each other. I really enjoyed the scene where we see them kind of right at the beginning when they get to the north fighting together because we can see how their teamwork has grown over time and how everyone's a lot more coordinated with each other and just how the group trusts Goblin Slayer, how even no matter what happens they're like, well, he'll be fine, or I trust him. I really enjoyed it, and I think as far as it goes, I'd actually say I probably like it about as much as I like the original series. So I would definitely, if anyone was into Goblin Slayer, I would say you'd have to check out the movie. I feel like it's just a must-have. Obviously,
I
you can skip like the first 24 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm in very much the same boat as you guys. One of the things I kind of look at when I go into like an OVA or a movie is why? Why does this exist? Does this add anything to the world? Does it expand upon the world at all? And I think this does a really good job of expanding the world through introducing new characters and a new environment. And I think it also does a very good job, as Joe said, it introduces a lot more world building into the background. Because I like stuff like that. I think it's pretty interesting to see uh, authors' ideas going into not necessarily things you see all the time, but maybe some extensive details that you wouldn't expect, like learning about the god of knowledge that is kind of ambivalent and will even grant knowledge to goblins because, fuck it, why not? If As Alex also said, if you love Goblin Slayer, you're gonna love this. This is a lot more Goblin Slayer, and it's a good time. I also thoroughly enjoyed this program and would recommend it if you are into things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, just to touch base, I 100% agree with you. And going to the world building aspect, that's one of the ones that I actually give the highest score on for my review. The world building is, in my opinion, is just so impressive because again, it takes one of the most pathetic enemies in any like video game type archetype and just expands on them so immensely. Like again, like with the hobgoblin, the goblin shaolin, or the goblin shaman, the goblin shaman, the goblin paladin, and then there's a goblin king from the OVA here. The OVA really introduced a grander scale of the world that they live in because even in the series, it pretty much kept to the farmland slash dungeon areas. But this one's like, oh, there's an up north mountain area. It even expanded on the lore a little bit with the dwarves with the dwarven castle and a little bit about them. And then it also really gave, again, I'm talking the biggest thing, the Goblin Society, the whole behind the scenes about, oh, that's how they crown a Goblin King. There's like, ritualistics that go behind it, the lore of the gods that go around that. And I think that those elements right there really expanded the world building aspect of the series, and the OVA really took that to new heights because it introduced a lot of elements that weren't in the previous 12 episodes. And that was a big deal for me because beforehand we only know of like Goblin Chieftain, Hobgoblin, and the other Goblin types, but then there's like a Paladin and a King, and then there's like a Goblin like a Goblin ritualistic priest and all this other stuff. And with that world building, I actually gave that overall score a 9 because it was very unexpected to see that in a 1 hour OVA to really pack so much world building in there.
Right. And I think all three of us can really agree on the point of more world building is wicked cool.
Yeah.
Because
I'm the type of person that enjoys like homework, though. I've said that multiple times. If a series is like, hey, do you want to dive into the wiki? I'm like, yes, give me the wiki.
Yes. Alex even goes to the extent of, in our most recent D&D campaign that we've just started, Alex made a newspaper for us to read that's just things that are happening in the world. So you will never find him turn down an opportunity to experience some more world building.
Yeah, I world story and world building to me are like the biggest aspects of why I watch anime. Like it's because like it introduces something new and inviting, and I love to see the story grow.
I feel that. That's what I really enjoyed about the Rising of the Shield Hero, where I felt like that is because you know how the isekai genre a lot of people view as just cookie cutter. It's kind of all the same stuff. That one I really enjoyed just because I felt like that had some very interesting world building, very just interesting sort of the dynamic between the countries and how they all sort of relate to each other, how their sort of religious system structured. I found that very interesting, and that's why I was glad that they said, "Oh, it's going to get a season 2 and a season 3."
Right.
Yeah.
That's one I would definitely recommend as an atypical isekai if you like in-depth stories and world building and characters and stuff. That's a good one.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think that the isekai genre is typically cookie cutter. You're absolutely right. But Shield Hero drew me in because of the world building and the story behind it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we covered it on a previous season of the podcast. I think that one is on our YouTube channel only, if my memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, that's before we were hosting on several platforms.
Yes, and we will get to those platforms just shortly. But first, Joe, is there stuff you would like to plug for all of the fine people listening at home?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I'd like to say, thank you for having me on here, both of you guys. And thank you very much for being supporters of the Imouri brand. Like I said, we try to drive this as make this as community driven as possible. And we put a lot of love and a lot of stuff into the Imouri community for you guys. And it's always good to make sure you check us out. Like we have like a Discord channel called the Secret Anime Club. We are doing anime reviews now. There's a lot. We're always trying to make new material, new items, such as like the skateboard decks we had in the past, the mobile phone cases. Our collections are all based on like different anime things, such as like the Summer Beach episode collection, and we just try to do a lot. But like the most important thing that I think I see from the Imouri brand is that we keep this brand as wholesome as possible because we want everyone to enjoy it. It's not just for 18 up or anything like that. We want to keep this wholesome so that way you, your friends, and even if you're like, let's say you're in high school or something like that, you'd be not ashamed to wear this with pride.
And if you are listening to this and you are in high school and you delve into the Protagonist Seat back catalog, I want to take this moment to say, do not swear as much as I do. I only do that when I get really excited, and it is not something any socially decent person should actually do.
Oh, and you guys have a big collaboration going on too right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we are in collaboration with Anime NYC. You have seen stuff on Facebook about it, on Instagram, probably Twitter. And I can't divulge any more details except for there is a collaboration, and then there is going to be more details coming out soon on social media. So keep your eyes peeled on the Imouri Facebook channel or the Imouri Facebook page, as well as like Instagram. If you're part of the Secret Anime Club on Discord, you can find details about that even earlier. And if you don't know how to get to the Secret Anime Club on Discord, go to Imouri.com. That's IMOURI.com. And then if you go under community and you'll see Secret Anime Club, it'll take you right to the directions on how to sign up for Discord to be part of that entire channel.
And don't worry, we will have a link to the Imouri website in the description.
Yes. And I would also encourage everyone to join that community because there's a lot of cool people in there. As I said, I myself am in there. If you happen to see my username Test My Echo in that Discord, feel free to say hi.
And I can tell you that I don't know fully what you guys are doing, like all the stuff you guys are doing with Anime New York, but I can tell you, as someone who was really looking forward to that convention, I'm definitely going to probably pick myself up something from that, just to sort of rep the convention when the time comes, even though I won't actually be able to be there.
We'll celebrate it in spirit.
We will celebrate Anime New York in spirit.
Yeah.
And hey,
with that.
And hey, if you guys who are listening to this right now have decided that you endeavor to search for more of our content, it's pretty easy to find. We've got our YouTube page that I mentioned earlier, the Protagonist Seat, that we've been doing for almost, 2 years now?
Yeah, about 2 years now.
So that has our entire back catalog of content going back from the very first day we started in Alex's basement with just the worst snowball mics ever.
Yeah, in fact, you know what? You can probably skip a lot of that early stuff.
Yeah, there are a couple good bits. If you see, I would recommend the Magical Girl Spec Ops season. That season's pretty good. And for those of you who want to listen to us on the go, we are on every podcast distributor, basically. iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio,
Deezer if you're French.
Deezer if you are French, or I've seen we've gotten listens, a couple in India. I think we had a couple in Spain, too. We're going national. I mean, international.
International.
Yeah.
And seek us out on social media at Protagonist Seat on Facebook and Twitter. That is where we post the updates to any new stuff we're trying or any new uploads, anything like that. You can find your updates first there.
In fact, you'll probably see an update for this very episode on there.
You should. That would, I mean, I would hope so. We're not that incompetent.
Nah, you guys are pretty cool. I like you guys.
Thanks,
and we
man.
and you know what, Joe? It was great having you, and I hope you someday come on here again. Hopefully there's another Goblin Slayer movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, listen.
Hopefully there's a season 2.
Happy. Yeah, I'm more than happy to come back, you guys. I'm gonna be looking out for you guys now and really listening in and tuning in now because I'm very curious to see what y'all do in the future. And I look forward to hearing more of your episodes. And I will definitely be taking a look at your back catalog and seeing like what's been going on with that because I'm very intrigued now.
There's some stuff back there that we might not necessarily be proud of, but it's history and it's up there. And thanks again for being here. It was really fun. And I'm looking forward to hopefully getting the chance to do more stuff like this. 'Cause it's fun and I like it.
Talking about anime is always fun.
Talking about anime is always fun. I believe that's it. If you guys have any parting words, now is time to make your peace.
No, I'm good. I just want to say
I think we're
thank
good.
you. Yeah, thank you.
All right.
And thank you for being here.
Yes. This has been the Protagonist Seat signing off.
Before we go, thank you for watching.
And thank you. And then I point at the screen and it's like 3D, except I don't do that because I'm not on camera. Anyway, see you around, kiddos.
Goodbye.